Welcome back for another video, guys. Checking out Al Murray, and of course this one is Euro Crisis Explained. Okay guys, this one was one that was requested. Okay, yes, so I can't wait to check it out, so let's go.
We can do this. Times are tough right now, of course, because the old Euro crisis. Now, the Euro crisis is very complicated, and the Euro crisis is so bad right now, it's so bad, the Euro crisis right now, the world is looking to the Germans for leadership and the French for moral courage. I mean, whichever way you cut that, that's a fuck up, isn't it? Now, truth of the euro is it's very, very complicated. The euro crisis is extremely complicated. It's extremely complicated. It's so complicated, no one can explain it satisfactorily, right? Now, Paul, maths teacher, you must have paid attention to some of this, yeah? Explain the euro crisis for me. Go. Come on, Paulie.
Spent too much money.
Spent too much money. OK, right. Good answer. I like it, yeah? But, truth is, mate, it's much more complicated than that, yeah? Because that's the thing, ladies and gentlemen. Any discussion you get into about the euro, the smartest thing to do, whatever anyone says to you about the euro, is simply to reply, no, it's much more complicated than that. That way, you appear more intelligent and therefore win. It's genius, because the thing with the euro...
It's much more complicated than that. You appear much more intelligent and therefore win. That's the trick. Okay, now.
Euro, right, is there is a temptation, a pretty solid temptation with the euro crisis to explain it all in terms of crude national stereotypes. There is a tendency to do that, right? But it's much more complicated than that. It's much more complicated the idea that the Germans, yeah, the Germans, oh look, over there, the Germans, it's much more complicated the idea that the Germans want to rule the world, right? And in order to do that, they make stuff people actually like and then sell it very successfully, right? No, it's much more complicated than that. It's much more complicated the fact that the French only really want to work till they're 52, only really want to work till Thursday lunchtime and expect the rest of us to fucking pay for it. No, it's much more complicated than that. It's much more complicated the fact that Italy is basically one giant money laundering scheme. It's much more complicated. It's much more complicated the fact that half of Spain is asleep and the other half hasn't got a fucking job. It's much more complicated than that. It's much more complicated the fact that Ireland is Ireland. It's much more complicated than that. It's much more complicated the fact that Polish people want to work. They want to work, they work hard, they do a good job, and they make the rest of us look like a bunch of slack, feckless wankers with a thumb up our arse who've forgotten the meaning of graft. No, it's much more complicated than that. Much more. It's much more complicated than that Greek bloke. You remember, you went on holiday, that Greek bloke who drove you from the airport to your villa, yeah, and he was only 3/4 of a mile, and he charged you 85 fucking euro. And that evening when he brought you your tea, he had his thumb in the hummus and tried to have sex with your daughter. No, it's much more complicated than that. The truth is, it's hard to explain.
Really? Is that so now?
But whoever set it up must have known what they were doing, surely. Yeah? I mean, have we got any bankers present? Any bankers in? Banker and accountant, someone who understands? Up there. You're an accountant. Good girl. What's your name, love? Mandy. Mandy is handy with figures. Good girl. Now, Mandy, if I go to a bank to set up a business, they'll run some checks on me, won't they? Of course they will, right? So you think whoever set up the euro must have done some checks. They do checks on you, Mike, if you wanted to borrow money, on you, Dave, if you want to borrow, on you, Paul. They do Stu, they do checks on all of us. Obviously, in my case, because I've died in 4 consecutive pub fires, for tax and insurance purposes, it's a little more difficult. But you just click the terms and conditions box on a website and the rest fucking happens. Now, the point is, right? Yeah, whoever set the euro up must have done some
Oh.
checks. They must have done a couple of checks. Perhaps on Greece, for instance, just to pick a name out of the hat. Maybe they checked that Greece, in its history, has defaulted, has gone bankrupt as a country 5 fucking times. In 1824, 1843, 1860, 1890 and 1932. You'd think they might have known that. You'd think they might have known the last time Greece was in the currency union, the Latin currency union, that ran to 1932. Greece was kicked out in 1908 for fiddling the fucking books and borrowing more money than it could afford to pay back. You'd think someone might have fucking checked. But no.
Right? Oh, he said he was just picking a name out of the box, but yet still he could tell you everything, and every time they fumble. No, he wasn't just picking a name out of the box, just saying, picking on the box. Wow, but of course they would have checked the first, the second, or the third time, right?
Much more complicated than that. Now, the thing is, but I'm going to try and explain the euro now. I'm going to try and do it, right? Because it's difficult to understand. We've got Plod here. We want him to be able to get to the scene of the crime as quickly as possible. So, I'm going to explain it in terms that our special squad can understand. So, front row, you are now the mighty nations of Europe. All of you are now the mighty nations of Europe. I want to get your loose change out. Your smallest shrapnel, just the tiniest bits of pieces you've got. Get your loose change out now. You are now the mighty nations of Europe, embarking on a single currency plan. I am the European Central Bank, right? I'm just going to come and pop down here. Okay, cough up. Come on. Andrew, love. You haven't got any money, of course not. But teacher, pleaded, chuck it in, good boy. Across we come. Excellent, good man. Cool, look at the size of that unit. Jesus. I didn't do it, officer. Okay. Come on, love. Mike hasn't got any money on him. Chuck it in. Oh, look at that. £4.50. You want to be Germany, do you? Okay. Come on. You haven't got any. Okay. Here we go. Chuck it in. Thanks, mate. Okay. Fantastic. Yeah, don't worry about it. Okay. Fantastic. You are now the mighty nations of Europe. You've all contributed to me, the European Central Bank. You are now all members of the euro. You are now all of equal worth, equal value. You have the same currency, the euro. You are all the same. That goes in there. And that is the end of that section of the show.
Of course. That's where it go, in the pocket. Who credit check Greece? Of course, that's where it's gonna go for sure. The pocket. And that's the end of that. That's the end of that section of the show, guys. Money well pocket. Okay. Gotta keep from there, and there. Alright, guys, that was a good one. This one was suggested and I enjoyed it. Of course. It's a really good one for sure. Okay, yes. Don't forget to live, love, laugh, and to learn, guys. Catching another one. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to click like, comment, subscribe. Bye.